Hey, this is Ben. Welcome to Feisty Chess. I'm taking the fight outside today, as you see. Hopefully the wireless holds up. E4, let's play E5 against GoGo Chess 14 on Lee Chess. Ooh, we got a Vienna game. I play the Vienna game, but I rarely face it. So what do I not want to see against the Vienna game? Usually this. Knight f6. After f4, d5 is the move you need to play. And black is fine here. The Vienna game is a sound opening, though. It does come with an advantage for white, because as you'll notice, he's got a center. He's got a bigger center, but there are many lines where I can make him have an isolated pawn on e5. Okay, he's playing the line I like to play. And I'll do this. And c5, I think, is the move. Yeah, c5 to start with. There are many moves, but I think c5 is good. Just claiming this d4 square. White's likely to castle queenside anyway, so getting c5 in to kind of get that pawn storm started on the queen side is good. Unusual systems here involve white going bishop f4, maybe queen g3. Yeah, okay, how do I want to play this? Yeah, you have to be careful for queen g3. He's going bishop e3. Now, I know the bishop belongs on f4 here. So I'm going to go with knight f6. Sorry, knight c6. And put a little pressure on this e-pawn and see how he wants to defend it. Probably queen g3. Okay, he's defending it by attacking my pawn. But actually, if I think knight takes e5 is good for me here. Gosh, it's hard to see in the outdoor sun, although I am in the shade. Knight takes e5 is good for me because here takes. This allows a queen trade, and notice now that I can defend this pawn with b6, and I have majority on the king side that is able to create a passed pawn. His majority on the king side is pretty weakened. It just lines straight up with my 3 pawns on the king side, on the queen side. And alternately, if rook takes, then I just take his queen, and the best he has is to take my queen. I recapture his rook, he recaptures my knight, and he's just down in exchange. So I'm going to go ahead and take this. Follow through on my threat. Oh wait, I missed something. After the queen takes line, I still have a knight. I still have a knight that's hanging on f. It gets a little wild. Well, I don't think I have anything better than takes here. I should have double-checked that line. Okay, well, we'll have to go with it. I mean, I'm losing that knight unless I go like queen f6. Yeah, let's trade. So now I've got knight g4. Oh, and that is good, because if bishop takes here, I just recapture with the bishop. And after rook takes, he's not threatening anything, but I get knight f2 in. That wins at least an exchange, maybe even a whole rook. This also hits the bishop. And where does he go with the bishop? If he wants to keep an eye on f2. Oops. Yeah, let's do this. His king side is really undeveloped. Maybe king d2 is the best he has. Or rook d3 doesn't work because I just play c4. He can't defend it with the rook. And that gets grabbed by the knight. This gets removed by the pawn. So king d2 might be the best he has. In which case I have the bishop pair at the very least, unless I find something better. A little bit out of it today, so this is going better than I expected. King d2 it is. Let me chase this rook away. I'm not looking to grab on a2. Bishop e6. I'm just looking to develop with some tempo here. But that looks like a very good move to me. If he goes, say, rook g4, then maybe I grab on e3 at that point. Although my knight is protected, I don't have reason to do that. I can go f6. His rook may be running out of squares. He has a check. Oh, I missed this. Chalk it up to visibility, or maybe my... Well, I have to go here. It's the only move that makes any sense. I'm losing a pawn. I should have taken the bishop first before playing that, and maybe thought about a6. I wasn't cognizant of white's threats. Okay, now I have to go here. Now, fortunately, his rook is still under threat. And where does his rook go? Oh, okay. His rook doesn't have to go anywhere just yet. Okay, I'm running over here. He's got bishop d3 check, but then I do have f5. And I don't see any immediate checks there. Okay, this has not gone according to plan. Just needed more prep with like a6, maybe just grab on e3 immediately, drag white's king out to the center, gain the two bishops. I mean, that made all the sense in the world. I have f5, which gives my king another square. Also restricts this rook's options. Well, the rook doesn't have those options, really. The alternative is king h6. I'm going to go with f5. I have to watch this bishop, which is now unprotected. I've been playing too much blitz. The blitz makes you kind of slacken your discipline in a lot of areas. Okay, where are you going with that rook? You really narrowed your options now. It's going on the queen side somewhere. Important to know my knight is not protected as long as that pawn is pinned. Do I have a counterattack that's better than just defending this pawn? I'm only down one pawn. If he gets that pawn, he's on my 7th rank and he's hitting this g7, which I don't like. I'm going to take time to just nullify that rook. I'm expecting knight f3 here. Knight f3, probably bishop c5. b6 is nice because it also allows me to play my bishop to c5. Okay. Horsey's got to go home, I guess. It's okay. He might be happier on e4. No, I don't think it makes sense to play bishop c5. Okay, that makes sense. That's coming with a fork. It's going to win material. I need to play knight e4. At least it's a check. If he takes, I've at least got the bishop pair. Okay. Now g5 looks like it wasn't that productive of a move. I'm taking away knight f3 from him. Gonna go knight d2. At that point, bishop d6 looks like it shuts down that knight. That's nice. I connect my rooks. Okay. Oh, that simply wins that pawn. Now, do I go for the a2 pawn? Almost certainly not. That's a bad bargain. I'd love to play my bishop back and then maybe go bishop to c6 after rook takes. Problem is he's got that check, which is also a fork. So yeah, let's drop back there anyway. Keep our bishop mobile. And then okay, now king f7. And he can't take that just yet. This lays a bit of a trap, too, because if he goes knight g6, which seems pretty natural... Oh, he's going to go rook f1, check. Wow, I'm absent-minded today. Still, I think I'm okay. He can grab it, I suppose. I do have my bishop pair. I'm down 2 pawns now. Ugh. I gotta get these rooks connected. H5 might be useful. Yeah, let's use h5 to try to open up the h-file for this rook. And if he pushes, I just have bishop takes. Also hitting his rook. That's nice. If he takes, I just take with my rook, and then I'm hitting h6 twice. He has to play h5. I guess he holds on to it then, but at least I have an active rook. See, if he takes, maybe I take with the bishop. And then after, say, rook h1. Yeah, this is good. Better. A good plan, anyway. Okay, he took. Now I have a choice. Which pawn to take? Knight f4 comes with tempo if I take with the rook. It also comes with tempo if I take with the bishop, so... But I like taking with the bishop better, because he doesn't have time for knight f4. I'm hitting his rook. Still down 2 pawns, but maybe if I can trade off all these kingside pawns, I can survive the ending. Rook f3 looks natural, but that would be a mistake because of bishop g2. Okay, he's going for that pawn. Now I'm pretty sure I can just gain another pawn back here. And he can try to pin me, but I just have bishop g4. Fortunately, my dark square bishop guards g7. Okay, just down 1 pawn, got the bishop pair. Could even play g6, I suppose, after rook h1. Idea of bishop f5 to come. I'm the only one with the pass pawn, there's that. He does have knight f4. Okay. This is getting tricky. I'm just not seeing things today. I think my only move is rook h4. I got rook h6. I think I like rook h6 better. He's got a knight coming to f6 is the problem, to g6. But knight g6, I think bishop f5 holds. Even wins material, actually. So yeah, this means my rook won't be pinned. Well, the bishop won't be pinned if he goes rook h1. He's playing with one more piece than me. My rook is just not participating. Let's play maybe rook d8 to pin that bishop. Okay, he's just going for the material. Okie dokie. Well, he's got an extra pawn, but I have... a pass pawn. He can't bring any more pressure to bear on it, so I'm just going to passively go rook h7. Maybe get my other rook into the game. Try to, anyway. He wants to bring his king to c3. Let's start with this move. Makes sense. Maybe you can throw in a check if his king goes to c3. You can go rook d7. And then I maybe have those checks I can use. This just overprotects. So this means each one of my pieces is mobile because I can drop any one of them from that guard duty on g7. I could maybe get my king here, get out of the pin. Okay, I can make his king retreat. Maybe I'll activate this rook, and then I have rook, and then I have king h7. Oh, he wants to just trade off pieces. Well, that makes sense. Okay, this relieves some of my pressure, though. Let's unpin this pawn and get it rolling, huh? How do we do that? Oh, he offers a draw. Okay. Low on time. Really kind of outgunned in this position. Super passive. He's just wanting a couple rating points for getting a draw. I'll give it to him. You know, if I were in a feistier mood, I totally wouldn't, but maybe he just doesn't like endings. Did I miss some awesome tactic here? Oh, I did. I had bishop takes. Oh my gosh, I had a superior ending. I should have been suspicious with that draw offer. Look, here's what I have. Bishop takes g5. He takes with the king, he just loses his bishop. And I've got a better ending with the rooks. Got the passed pawn. His pawns are just all looking silly, all isolated and doubled. So yeah, I should have gone for that. Okay. When I'm feeling better, I'll do some better recordings, but I didn't want to let the channel languish for the time being. So, let's analyze. I think I found most of the important stuff here. Let's look at the book. You know, I know this opening pretty well, but still. It's good to have the book. He even plays the Paulsen variation here. Paulsen attack. Which I play, in part, because it's old school, and in part because Louis Paulsen, I live in Dubuque, Iowa, and Louis Paulsen started the Dubuque Chess Club. He lived here, and lived here for some time, and then he made the trek to New York for the first American Chess Congress in 1857, and I'm actually the director of the chess club that he started. So yeah, I'm outside here in my yard, in my garden. I have, last year I planted some potatoes in honor of Louis Paulsen because his family was potato farmers. And Louis Paulsen, you surely know the name from some opening or other. There's Paulsen variations in the Sicilian, in the French. He really wrote a lot of opening theory and was the first one to really, I think, dig into chess in that way. And he was amazing as a blindfold player. I mean, that kind of stuff is kind of routine now, but he was the first one to play multiple blindfold games. I think he did, the record at the time was 12 blindfold games at once. He didn't win them all, but he won most of them against strong players. And for some time, he was the greatest chess player in the world. After the tragic death after Morphy quit and maybe died. But yeah, he had many kind of informal world championship matches, a couple world championship matches with Adolf Anderssen. He had a defensive style, though, so he's not as well remembered as Anderssen and Morphy. His brilliant games are not, they're strategically brilliant, they're not quite so flashy, tactical brilliant. Anyway, a long digression on Louis Paulsen. This is called the Paulsen attack in the Vienna Gambit. And I play it as well. Yeah, knight takes is the main move. You can see black scores the best when he just simply captures. Other options are knight c6, which lays a bit of a trap for white, but white knows that trap. He plays this variation. And f5, which is not as good. Apparently, white doesn't score very well in f5, but no one seems to regard that move very well. Anyway, I took. And then bishop e6 is the main move. c5. Maybe I got my move order wrong here. c5 was not well regarded. I think I came out of the opening well, though. Definitely. Okay. I'm not going to turn the computer on this time. Maybe for some... Well, okay, I can't resist. Ah. So white does have a bit of an advantage here. Knight h3, it says, is good. But castling is good, too. Bishop e6. So it likes bishop e6, maintaining the threat and developing a piece. That's probably better. Let's see what... Oh, computer hates this move. because of queen h5. Not a move I saw. And I can't play f6 to defend that knight. I can't defend that knight any other way but moving it. Back to c6 is the best apparently, and then... Oh, not even taking with the rook, but just bishop c4. And there's this nasty threat on f7. So I guess I gotta play bishop e6? What's wrong with bishop e6? Bishop takes d5, so I'll trade. Rook takes, and he's not up a pawn, but this is devastating for black. Queen e7. Queen f6 looks more natural. What's wrong with this? Trying to go queen g6 and maybe trade queens. Knight h3. Bishop e7. And rook to e1. And I guess if I can't castle queenside, so if black tries to castle kingside, yeah, bishop g5 is killer here, because the queen g6 doesn't work. My bishop is hanging. So yeah, white didn't find the best continuation though. He went for immediately taking, and now after taking it seems like a drawish game. f6 to defend the knight, really. Knight g4 looks so much better, but bishop b5 check. Actually, he had that immediately. So yeah, I needed to notice this check, but I didn't notice it. He didn't either at this point. He played king d2, and here I need to play bishop d7 or a6 or just taking. But even if I take, bishop d5 might be. Bishop e7 allows me to go to f8 in the case of a check. That's the thing the computer likes. I bet it also likes this. Yeah, it's pretty good. So now if he checks here, king e7, he doesn't have this bishop taking intermezzo check. But he has king takes, bishop e6. Just give that pawn. Well, maybe it's poisoned. King f6. Oh, and look at that. The rook has to go to h5. It's just about trapped, isn't it? g6 to support bishop g5, bishop c5. No, g6 to hit the rook, sorry. Rook h4. g5. We're just... Oh my gosh, we are running this rook out of squares. He's got to go rook e4, doesn't he? Oh, but that runs into a pin. What about a4? It just seems kind of a little bit out of play there. It says rook d4. Despite this. Wow, and that's only a half pawn lead after winning an exchange. Yeah, you can't go anywhere on the h file. If he comes to h5, I just go king g6, and he can't defend it. He can go g5, but then I just play bishop here, and it's trapped. g4, I mean. So rook h4 seems to make the most sense. a4, sorry. Now a6, which isn't a real threat. But bishop d3. Bishop c5 check. King moves and then b5? Ah, there's no saving this poor rook. The rook is hopeless and useless there. We can kind of humiliate it a little bit by chasing it back and forth. Bishop d5, probably planning to put the bishop here, and then this rook is mobile, but look how immobile his rook is. So anyway, that's looking quite a ways ahead. He did have an awkward rook. Rooks are often awkward even when they come out for queens, maybe especially after queens are traded, because they're the most valuable piece, and having them out front, it means they just get harassed, and they have to continue moving to because you don't want to trade them. So that's not the line that was taken. I didn't just simply capture there. I went bishop e6, and this got me in trouble. Probably white maintained an advantage throughout from here. F5. Likes rook d5. Rook b5. Yep. Bishop d7 apparently. Oh, I see. My bishop still guards g7. So I didn't consider this. And then if rook takes, this wins material. Doesn't it? How come white still has an advantage? h3 to hit the knight? Okay. I win the exchange, but he's going to win a pawn after f takes. What if I just come back? Knight f3? Wait a minute, does he have some crazy mating with knight e5? King g5. Knight f7. Oh, that fork. What if I come here? Bishop e2. Oh, and I have to be careful for mate. Bishop f2. He's going to force me into that fork one way or another. Right there on f7. Not a mate, but just as bad. Wow, white still has an advantage here. Hang on, hang on. What if I leave the knight and just grab the rook? Takes the knight. I can defend. Bishop e4. Looks like I'm holding on to all my cookies here. How is this good? He still has those forks. Wow, knight e5 is inevitable here. Maybe I don't want to go f takes g4. Maybe I want to guard against knight d5. Knight h4 is the other plan. But that seems preferable, doesn't it? G takes f5 check. King takes f5. Rook h5 check. How does white have such a big advantage here? Knight g5. King e7. Knight e4. Okay, I'll give back the bishop. h6. I mean, okay, he's got a lot of pawns for his exchange. It is a material factor. He's got 2 pawns for the exchange, and they're very healthy pawns, and his pieces are way more active than mine. So that's enough for a piece-size advantage, according to the computer. There might be tactical lines we didn't get to, too. Okay. F5, rook here. Went for b6, not as good. Bishop d5, I didn't see that idea. Went straight for knight e4. And bishop d5, it gives up that pawn with check. I want to hang on to that pawn if I can, but I can't really. Okay, I got some activity here. Looking a little better. And these critical lines I had to calculate. This. And I can actually afford to grab this pawn. Because if he tries to pile up on this pinned bishop somehow, maybe knight f4 or even knight g1, I've got I got bishop g4 here. And I'm hitting his rook, so he can't take my bishop. We trade rooks here. I got the bishop pair and a passed pawn, and that's compensation enough for being down a pawn. So he tries piling up on the g file, and I just happily grab that pawn back. So now I'm just down a pawn. Computer likes king c1 here, but knight f4 seems to be the most direct approach. Rook h4. Ooh, that was better. This looked more complicated. So I'm pinning his knight now. At least temporarily. Rook g5. Why? You think maybe rook g3? I don't know what rook g5 does, but I'm looking at these ideas. So I would maybe think about king here. That apparently loses the advantage. How about rook g3? Ooh, that loses more than an advantage. Bishop f5. Oh, sure, that's the threat. That's the threat here. So rook g5 is to stop bishop f5. Makes sense. Okay. He went straight for knight f4. In which case, yeah, I go here. Oh, the computer really likes this. Yeah, knight takes h3. What did he miss? King c1. Why king c1? Well, he's still got a big advantage here. a4, just start things going on the queen side. Okay. Yeah, that b4 move should have got my tactical awareness up a little bit. And I definitely would see this on a better day. 0.01. I mean, he didn't make a losing mistake, but he has probably a hard time holding this rook ending. Especially if he doesn't like rook endings. Now, I think I'm pretty good at rook endings. And especially when there's a clear plan, like, let's push my pass pawn up the board. And black doesn't have any clear ways, white doesn't have any clear ways of going for advantage here. I can start with maybe rook here and make his king come back to defend these second rank pawns. I should probably start with king f7 and getting this pawn rolling. It says for white to go a4, makes sense. Rook f4, just to get away from any king harassment, and block check, so I can go king f7, king f6, start pushing my pawn. Yeah, the computer says it's a draw, and it's probably a draw. Rook endings usually are, but it's definitely advantage black here, in practical sense. But yeah, white saw this and offered the draw at this point. Yeah, I missed it, but at least it was just a draw. Okay. Well, it's been fun. Hope you enjoyed the great outdoors here, and stay feisty.